A 5-cent clove of garlic just outperformed a $30 synthetic gel by 300% in a head-to-head field trial. And somebody, somewhere, does not want you to know that. Welcome to Forbidden Lures. Today we are ripping apart the most controversial bait secret in North American freshwater fishing: crushed fresh garlic mixed with extra virgin olive oil. The same stuff in your kitchen pantry right now. It is so devastatingly effective on catfish and carp that 9 states have moved to restrict or outright ban the scent dispersal tactics behind it. We are going to break down the insane biochemistry of why fish lose their minds over garlic, expose the real reasons the bait industry prays you never figure this out, walk through the legal minefield state by state, and then hand you the exact step-by-step recipes, including the legendary Little Red Wieners, so you can build this forbidden weapon yourself. Let's get into it. Part 1. The bait industry does not want you here. The commercial tackle industry pulls in billions every year, and a huge chunk of that revenue comes from one category: consumable scent products. $15 dough baits, $25 pheromone gels in fancy squeeze bottles. They need you coming back week after week, reaching for your wallet. So here is the number they never want printed on a screen. In standardized 30-minute benchmark trials, a bare hook treated with a homemade garlic and olive oil slurry, total cost about 5 cents, pulled in 300% more strikes than the leading commercial gel retailing at $20 a tube. How? 2 reasons. First, those expensive synthetic gels are water-soluble. Drop one in a river with any kind of current, and within 15 minutes, the scent is gone, washed away. You are fishing a naked hook, and you do not even know it. The olive oil hack creates a hydrophobic barrier. Oil does not dissolve in water, so it keeps pumping scent for up to 45 minutes straight. Second, and this is where it gets personal, your own hands are probably sabotaging every single cast you make, and you have no idea. Part 1B. Your hands are killing your bite rate. Here is something nobody at the tackle shop will ever tell you. Your bare skin produces an amino acid called L-serine. To a fish, L-serine is a screaming alarm bell. It means predator. It means danger. It means swim the other way now. And it gets worse. Think about what you touched on the way to the lake: the gas pump, sunscreen, bug spray, a cigarette. Every one of those transfers petroleum derivatives, nicotine residue, and chemical plasticizers directly onto your line, your hooks, your bait. A catfish hits that chemical cocktail, and its brain fires one single message: get out. Now think about that for a second. A catfish can detect scent at concentrations a dog cannot even begin to process. Imagine a single drop of blood falling into an Olympic swimming pool. A catfish can smell it from the parking lot. Their entire bodies, especially those barbels, those whiskers, are essentially giant swimming tongues covered in chemoreceptors and taste buds. This is the first secret of the garlic hack. Before it attracts a single fish, it does something even more important. It wipes out every trace of L-serine, every molecule of sunscreen, every ghost of gasoline your fingers left behind. It is the most powerful scent neutralizer in freshwater fishing, and it costs you almost nothing. But erasing your scent is only the opening act. What garlic does next is on a completely different level. Part 2. The biochemical weapon. Why fish lose their minds over garlic. Why would a bottom-dwelling catfish, living in pitch-black, murky water, care about an Italian cooking ingredient? Fair question. It is not like garlic grows underwater. The answer is sulfur. Catfish, the entire Ictaluridae family, channel cats, blues, flatheads, are hardwired to hunt by chemistry. In zero-visibility water, they do not use their eyes. They track amino acids and sulfur compounds the way a missile tracks heat. And they can lock onto those compounds at concentrations as low as 1 part per billion. Now here is the part that changes everything. Picture a fresh garlic clove as a tiny grenade with the pin still in. Nothing happens. You could throw a whole, unpeeled clove into the water and a catfish would swim right past it. Completely useless. But inside every cell of that clove, 2 chemicals are sitting in separate compartments, kept apart like a binary explosive. One is an amino acid called alliin. The other is an enzyme called alliinase. The moment you physically crush that clove, smash it, pulverize it, those cell walls rupture. The enzyme hits the amino acid, and in an instant, you get a volatile biochemical detonation that produces a compound called allicin. Allicin is the exact molecule that makes garlic smell like garlic. And to a catfish or a carp, the organosulfur compounds inside allicin perfectly mimic the chemical signature of decaying organic matter, high-protein food sources, and bleeding baitfish. It is a false distress signal broadcast directly into the water column. When a catfish intercepts that signal, something extraordinary happens. It triggers a hunting behavior called chemoorientation. Picture this. The fish starts swimming in a slow zigzag through total darkness, comparing the concentration of sulfur hitting its left whisker versus its right whisker, adjusting course with every pass, following an invisible gradient that leads it straight to your hook. For carp, the mechanism is different but just as devastating. Carp spend their lives sifting through mud, scanning for the natural fermentation signatures of organic matter. A concentrated blast of garlic cuts through all that background noise like a spotlight in a dark room. It screams, massive, safe, high-calorie food source, right here. Aquaculture research has confirmed that adding just 1 to 2% garlic to fish feed aggressively stimulates their appetites, makes them eat more, and accelerates their growth. But there is a catch. Allicin is unstable. It starts breaking down the second it hits water. Left on its own, your garlic scent would burn out in minutes. That is exactly why you need the olive oil. The oil acts as a lipid carrier. It traps the sulfur volatiles, slows their oxidation, and because oil and water refuse to mix, it releases the garlic scent in a slow, steady stream, creating a long-distance drift plume that pulls fish from hundreds of yards away. That plume does not fade for up to 45 minutes. The $20 gel from the tackle shop? Gone in 15. So if this is just grocery store garlic and kitchen olive oil, why did 9 states treat it like a controlled substance? Part 3. The 9-state controversy. Why the law stepped in. Let me be clear about what banned in 9 states actually means. Nobody is going to arrest you for buying garlic, but the application, the act of dispersing concentrated scent oils into public water, falls under strict regulations against chumming, bait clouds, and the introduction of foreign substances in a growing number of jurisdictions. Take Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources went hard after products like bait cloud and any technique that disperses concentrated scent into the water. Their regulations classify dropping scent balls, releasing oil slicks, or dispersing attractant clouds as illegal chumming and littering. Their argument? Repeated introduction of concentrated oils into enclosed waters can injure aquatic wildlife, taint the flesh of wild fish, and create surface films that choke off oxygen exchange. Colorado takes it in a different direction entirely. On their pristine trout streams, they enforce strict lure-only regulations. The moment you apply a natural oil-based garlic slurry to an artificial lure, you have legally crossed the line from lure to bait. That is a violation. Full stop. California enforces localized bans in sensitive ecosystems like the Delta, specifically targeting what regulators call over-efficient fishing methods. Anything that generates massive scent plumes capable of wiping out endangered species as bycatch. New York and Indiana restrict it under invasive species protections because this hack is so brutally effective at drawing in enormous schools of common carp and certain catfish species classified as invasive. And 6 more states, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and others, have their own versions of chemical attractant restrictions in fresh water. The official justification across the board is the principle of fair chase. This 5-cent kitchen hack is so overpowered that in heavily pressured waterways, it can strip out the most reproductively mature fish faster than the population can recover. Regulators call it stunting. Think about that. A grocery store ingredient so effective that the government had to step in and protect the fish from it. That tells you everything you need to know about what we are dealing with here. Part 4. The 5-cent Masterclass. How to build the forbidden lure. All right, you have seen the science. You understand the controversy. Now, I am going to put the weapon in your hands. But first, the single biggest mistake that will ruin this entire hack before you even start. Do not use garlic powder from your spice rack. Most commercial garlic powder has been heat-treated during processing, and heat permanently destroys the alliinase enzyme. No enzyme means no allicin reaction. No allicin means no sulfur compounds. No sulfur means you are fishing with expensive-smelling nothing. That jar of powder is dead on arrival. Here is what you do instead. Step 1. Buy a fresh bulb of raw garlic. Step 2. Peel the cloves, then crush them violently. Flat side of a knife, garlic press, whatever you have. You want a wet, pulpy, messy slurry. The more cells you rupture, the more allicin you produce. Step 3. Immediately transfer that crushed slurry into a small container and pour in high-quality extra virgin olive oil. The ratio? 2 parts crushed garlic to 1 part oil. Why olive oil specifically? Because olive oil contains its own phenolic compounds that act as a secondary attractant, especially effective on carp. Step 4. And this is where most people waste the whole batch. Do not just rub this mixture on a bare metal hook. It will wash off on the first cast. You need a scent-holding medium. Take a small piece of natural sea sponge, a tiny mesh bag, or a specialized spring-style bait holder and soak it in your garlic oil slurry. That sponge becomes your scent engine. If you are bank fishing, run a double bait system. Main bait on your top hook. A small mesh bag of garlic slurry attached to your sinker. That bag sits on the bottom and acts like a scent beacon, broadcasting a stationary plume downstream that drags fish straight to your setup. Drifting a river from a boat? Apply the slurry to a porous lure. As you drift, you will drag a massive sulfur plume behind you, pulling in hungry blue cats and summer steelhead for the entire float. Now, you have the foundation. But the old-timers who have been fishing like this for decades, they took it further. Part 5. Old-timer secrets. The recipes they never wrote down. If you want to see what 40 years of trial and error outside the commercial bait system looks like, you need to know about the Little Red Wieners. This is my favorite trick in all of freshwater fishing, and the whole batch costs less than $2. Go to the store and buy the cheapest, lowest quality hot dogs on the shelf. Cut them into 1-inch chunks and throw them into a Ziploc bag. Now, dump in a massive amount of your crushed, fresh garlic. Next, pour in 1 packet of unsweetened strawberry Kool-Aid powder and a small splash of water. Seal the bag and shake it until every chunk is stained deep blood red. The Kool-Aid is not for flavor. It is a visual trigger. That bright, bloody color is the first thing a catfish sees in murky water. The cheap hot dog meat acts as a high-protein sponge, absorbing the garlic oil deep into its fibers. When a little red wiener hits the water, catfish see the blood-red color, smell the intense sulfur plume, and taste the protein of the meat. They do not nibble, they inhale it. Now here is the next evolution. And this is the part that separates weekend anglers from the people who consistently pull monsters. Fermented garlic. Recent studies revealed that fermenting raw garlic in a 10% saltwater brine for 6 weeks completely transforms its chemical profile. Yes, the fermentation destroys the allicin, but it supercharges 2 other compounds, diallyl sulfide and diallyl disulfide, DAS and DADS. These compounds are vastly more stable in water than allicin, and they carry an incredibly potent, deeply savory, pungent scent profile. In controlled trials, fish exposed to fermented garlic showed massive immune system spikes, higher survival rates, and explosive growth. The practical implication for you. On highly pressured lakes where fish have seen raw garlic 100 times and learned to hesitate, dropping fermented garlic oil can instantly reignite a dead bite. It is a completely different chemical signature, and the fish have 0 frame of reference for it. 2 more quick variations worth mentioning. The licorice cloud. Mix your garlic and olive oil slurry with a few drops of pure anise oil. Anise contains anethol, a compound scientifically proven to be a hyperstimulant for carp. Savory sulfur plus sweet licorice creates a multisensory trap carp cannot ignore. And the breakfast of champions. Fresh chicken livers blended with Wheaties cereal into a thick, bloody paste, then spiked with a spoonful of your garlic oil. Moldable, stays on a treble hook, and absolutely deadly on channel cats. Conclusion. Before you mix up a batch of any of this, do the responsible thing. Check your local state and county regulations. Make sure you are not fishing a lure-only zone. Confirm that chumming and scent dispersal are legal on your specific body of water. Respect the resource. Do not over-harvest just because the fish are biting. And never leave trash on the bank. Now here is the bottom line. The tackle industry will keep selling you the next miracle in a plastic squeeze bottle. They have to. That is how they survive. But the truth of fishing has always lived in biology, in chemistry, and in the knowledge passed down by the people who fished to eat, not just for sport. Crushed garlic and olive oil is not a gimmick. It is an enzymatically active organosulfur bomb that directly hijacks the most sensitive hunting instincts of freshwater predators. It is so effective that governments had to rewrite their own rule books just to give the fish a chance. If you want to keep getting secrets like this before they get buried, subscribe to Forbidden Lures and hit the bell. We are the only channel digging this deep, and content like this does not stay up forever. Drop a comment and tell me the weirdest homemade bait you have ever actually caught a fish on. Keep your hooks sharp. Keep your scents strong. I will see you on the water.